Hi, people.
Hi, people.
Oh, you don't need to see the fire alarm. Hi, I'm so glad to see you all. Let me let more people in. So nice. I thought everyone forgot me. So I'm kind of very excited that people did not forget me, as it turns out. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, beautiful people. I'm just letting people in, so take your time, get a cup of coffee.
Hi there.
Hi, guys. I'm so happy to see everybody.
Welcome home.
Well, I've been home, but yes, thank you.
Well,
Thank you. I'm so happy to see all these happy people. Look at all these people who are joining. Yay.
Well, you're a big draw.
Yeah, just for a little bit. I'm just happy no one forgot me.
Never.
Oh, never.
Never. Okay, I think we got 15 people.
Do you have a name tag?
What?
Do you have a name tag?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It's in a place you can't see it. In case you forgot. Oh, I'm so glad to see everybody. Yay.
Hey, Joe.
Welcome back.
Thank you so much.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hey, Sharon.
Hi, Sharon.
Hey.
Hi, Joe.
Hello.
Well, the novelty has now officially worn off for me. No, I'm just kidding. I'm so happy. I missed everybody so much, which is why we entitled today's Lunch and Learn, The Things We Miss and the Things We Miss. So, you know, I'll do anything. It's sort of like in a YouTube video where you do, you know, what's it called? You get people interested and then you end up not talking about what you say you're going to talk about. But I wanted us today to talk about the things that we miss, but also the things that we miss. And as one example, and then we'll do a little catching up this way too, one of the things that I did during my little time off was I went to Maine, and look at those guys.
Oh, penguin.
Puffins.
Oh, puffins.
Puffins.
Yeah.
Those are puffins, people.
Any glass?
And look at that water. So I went to Maine for about 8 or 9 or 10 days or something like that. And
Rabbi.
I didn't want to miss out on the opportunity. So this is one of the things I did not want to miss was the puffins, which is on this little tiny island that's called Easter Egg Island. I don't know why it's called Easter Egg Island, but these are puffins. Let me show you another one. Let me show you another one. And Maine, as you know, is God's country. I mean, that is God's country up there. I felt like a Kennedy. Check out this guy. I would have put a video in, but I'm not sure if this is one taking off.
Wow.
Where in Maine were you?
Well, it's about an hour and 45 minutes north of Portland in something bay. Jamie's daughter's friends, parents, the mom is from there. And I'm trying to think of what the name of the place is. I should know this.
Was it cold enough for you?
It was not. It was humid. But like 3 of the nights, it was so clear that I got to see the comet twice. And it was the nights when it was in July when Jupiter, I don't know if you've noticed, but Jupiter and Saturn are like right next to each other in the night sky, right at the beginning of darkness. If you look up, you see 2 big planets. It's Jupiter and Saturn, and they were at their closest proximity to Earth when we were up there. So we got to, even with binoculars, we didn't have a telescope, unfortunately. So we got to see them, but I got to see the comet, which was very cool. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you one more picture in a second. Those are the puffins. Those were cool. And there was a comment over here.
Rabbi,
I'm going to mute everybody, and then we'll talk when it's question time. So hold on. I'm muting everybody. Okay. Now, someone had a question. Who had a question? You can unmute yourself if you had a question. No. Okay. So, can you hear me at least? Okay. So we are going to turn on our mics whenever we want to now, or you can write in the comments, comment box if you have something.
Oh God, we lost it.
Yeah? Okay. So today I thought what we would do is look at, I don't know if you saw last week, I did a little YouTube video, and I talked about a poem. And I wanted to read together the actual article. I don't know if you guys saw the YouTube video, but in the video, I shared a really beautiful Israeli song, poem/song. And the song, as I said in the video, was based on this piece by David Grossman. Everyone I know probably has read some of David Grossman's books, which are all translated into English. But this was an article that he wrote for Haaretz magazine. Newspaper. It was right at, as you can see, March 23rd. So it was really right in the beginning of the pandemic. But I don't really want to talk about the pandemic per se today. I think we've all basically had it. But I did want to talk about the things that we miss. What do we miss? The perspectives that we have now that we've, as they say, distance makes the heart grow fonder. And so I want to know from you guys, what are some of the basic things that you miss? But also, what are the things that we miss? So I didn't want to miss the puffins. Oh, I have one more picture to show. I didn't want to miss the puffins. So we had to take an extra few miles on the boat to go to this little island called Easter Egg Island to see the puffins. So I didn't want to miss out on them. But there was this one other thing that I wanted to show you. Hold on, I'm going to share it. See, it's been I have Zoom forgetfulness. I have forgotten. So this was this last weekend. This was sort of the last hurrah. Everyone probably recognizes Sedona. Not the greatest picture in the world, but the sun was coming down, and you know how you can get different colors on the rocks all over the place depending on where the sun is hitting it. One of the cool things is back over here, this is at the Enchantment, back over here, there's a trailhead. And I actually learned something new about these, this soil, this micro soil that is sponge-like. And if anyone knows the name of this particular black soil, it's on the top of the soil, it's like this black sponge-like thing, micro something. And it holds water. So whenever it rains and then the rain goes down and it has like that little creek that goes through all over these rocks, it contains the water for years and years and years and years, and that's what feeds the plants while it's dry. And they haven't had monsoons up there either. So, but the guy told us that the black sponge-like soil, if you step on it, you ruin it. It doesn't work anymore for 1,000,000 years. It takes 1,000,000 years for it to grow back. So that was something I didn't want to miss either, and that I learned that I thought was actually really cool. Does anyone know what the name of that soil is? That black sponge-like soil that holds water forever?
I don't know the name, but I know it's a crust and you can't walk on it because you'll destroy but I don't know what the name of it is.
And 1,000,000 years to grow back, that's
cryptobiotic crust.
FOMO, cryptobiotic. See, I knew there was a crypto or a micro in there. Crypto's even better. Cryptobiotic crust. So again, when you're on a trip or you're on a sabbatical, even if it's only for 2.5 months and the office is calling you 7 times a week, you get to learn new things. So I'd never seen puffins in live action. For those of you who are here late, let me just show off again my best picture of the puffins. Look at those guys. Look at those beaks. They're so cute. Anyway, when you get excited about this stuff and you're me, you got nothing going on. So that's a good thing. Which during a sabbatical, you should have at least moments of nothing going on, even during a pandemic. So back to David Grossman. If you did see, even if you didn't see the video from last week, you can watch it on YouTube later. I just don't get nauseous while I do this. I read, and I'll start here, this song, and I can email the PDF. All you have to do is email me, and I will send you the link to the article and the link to Achinoam Nini's song. this song was written a couple months after the article was written. Everyone in Israel was talking about David Grossman's article, and therefore, you know, in Israel, it's so Israeli, you know, you get to write a song for everything. It got popular, and so I included it here. So let's go back to the article. Before we do, I wanted to know if I can have, I know this is going to be tough for this group. I'm going to stop the share just for a second so I can see your punums. Name one thing that you miss, especially for those of you who really, really haven't left the house too much.
My grandchildren.
Maybe to go to the store, huh?
My grandchildren.
Oh.
I haven't seen them. I haven't seen the East Coast kids in a year now.
Oh my gosh, that must be awful. Because you got to smell them, you know? You can't just see them on a screen. You got to smell them, and you got to see what their face looks like. It's like my grandmother used to say, let me see your face. She wanted to take a good hard look. Although I understand Carol Seidberg's been doing quite a bit of Camp Seidberg for her grandchild.
I have done a lot of Camp Seidberg for my, I'm very lucky I could do that. But
Well, they're local, and
yes,
Elaine's kids are back east.
I miss interpersonal relationships terribly.
Yes.
Synagogue, through the Heard Museum, everything that's interpersonal that we don't have anymore. It's terribly painful, terribly painful.
And I just want to just do a quick advertisement for Carol. She is an incredibly knowledgeable and passionate docent at the Heard Museum. So when we're done with this plague, we will hopefully go to the Heard and get a tour with Carol. She knows her stuff. And I went on a quick tour with her one time, and it was awesome. So
there's an unbelievable new exhibit opening September 4th or 5th for anybody that goes down there. Contemporary art, fantastic stories of Native American people and the social issues, very similar to Jewish issues, a lot of them.
So I can take like my cell phone and turn the speaker on and FaceTime you, and you can be my docent.
I can meet you there.
There you go.
Out.
Susan, hi.
Yeah. Hi, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Doing well, thank you. If you go on the Heard Museum's website, you can get a preview of some of those installations as they're being installed. Some of them are huge, and so you can see the installers working on them, and that gives you a preview. It's a really interesting exhibit.
So, yeah, and a lot of museums have done phenomenal with during the pandemic. Phenomenal exhibits online too that I understand are interactive. So someone else tell me, so we miss our grandkids, we miss our personal interactions. What are some of the other things that we miss?
Just going to the store. I mean, just going, I miss going to the store. I mean, everything's
Are you a fries person? Are you a fries person?
Yeah, but Whole Foods and Sprouts and all that. I just want to freaking go to the store.
Yeah.
No, without being a big deal.
Yep.
And my grandkids are 15 minutes away, and I haven't been able to see them.
Wow. And Janie.
I'm hugged and kissed deprived.
Yes.
I see my grandchildren, but I don't get big hugs and kisses. And I don't get big hugs and kisses from my children who I see and love. But my husband gives me hugs and kisses, so that's a good thing.
He's a good hugger. I don't know about the kissing part, but
Wait, how do you know that?
I just know.
Oh, okay.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I miss the way we used to get together Friday nights before service and nosh a little and have good talks up close.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
3 of my grandkids are out of the area, but the one that's still in the area, I miss going to the temple with her on Friday nights and then going out to eat.
I know you guys were there every Friday night together. I know because she was my first hug every Friday night.
Yeah, she charges the minimum.
She's allowed. Oh, yes, go ahead. You're on mute. Felice, you're on mute. I'm going to unmute you.
Okay, there you go.
There you go. What were you going to say?
Wayne and I are members, and what we miss is the Friday night, the Friday night service. And we were so welcomed with open arms to the congregation. And we went for that dinner, the dinner afterwards. and met a lot of you folks. And now we live here. We actually have sold our house in San Francisco, and we moved here to your 115 degree
It's
weather.
crazy.
But it's really very exciting for us. It's a new thing. So we're
Well, having moved from San Francisco myself in 2003, I will say it's nice to see the sun.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
I used to count the days because I was on the other side of the fog belt, so I would count the days of not seeing the sun. The temple was closer to so for those of you who don't know, Van Ness Avenue in San Francisco is sort of what we call the fog belt. So if you go on the downtown side, you can see the sun. If you're on our side, like where the park is, forget it. So I counted 18 days one summer of not seeing the sun. But I agree, 115 for 2 consecutive weeks is a little nuts.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So then the other question is, what are the things that we miss because we're so focused paying attention to our health, our kids' health, our grandkids' health? Maybe we're watching too much news or too much internet about the sky is falling and 170 plus thousand people are dead. And what are we missing that we would otherwise notice, like the puffins, like Sedona, the red rocks, or what do we think we would do differently if the coronavirus, which it will at some point,
be on vacation.
dissipates?
Would be on vacation this summer.
So first thing you're going to do is go on vacation.
Vacation, but also I find that I have totally lack motivation. I have never been a procrastinator. Now, who cares if I can't do it today? I can do it next week.
Right.
And I find that really disconcerting to me personally.
Yeah.
Though I read a great deal, but it's the life, and I think I'm becoming complacent and used to this lifestyle.
Right.
It might be hard to get out of it.
I'm sure other people have also found it really hard to get motivated, or may even feel depressed, or not depressed in the sense of not being able to get out of bed, but that, there is the option of not getting out of your pajamas. I mean, sabbatical was hard during this time because of that, Carol, because I didn't have to go to work, so I could just hang around the house. And I got a lot of little things done, like to do whenever I have downtime is to, stock up on things. So, or fix those little things. I finally hung, I took all of my dad's stuff, my mom and dad's stuff out of storage, put it in my garage, but I got to hang my grandparents' artwork. So that was one of the things that was kind of, my house, my walls, I moved into the house that I rent in 2015, and the walls were pretty bare. So putting up those paintings meant a lot to me. And by next time Lunch and Learn, I'm going to have one of them. My grandfather collected a Japanese artist called Hariuchi, and I'm going to put one of them behind here, so at least we'll have something to look at. So one of the things that, and anyone can jump in anytime, and I'm pretty chill, as I like to think. Possibilities, opportunities, and hope is what we're talking about today. The things that we miss that are now moving forward, opportunities for us. It will end. The pandemic will end. The election will end. Even though there's questions about that some days. I've decided I'm not watching, really, I watched a little bit of the convention last night, but I've really cut out watching news almost altogether. Except for news that I know is news and not scary yelling and screaming. And that's been helpful for my mental health. I'm reading some books that I otherwise probably would not have time to read. I actually bought a couple of poetry collections so that I can, so like there are things that I'm doing differently. So the question for today, and David Grossman asked this, we're not going to read the entire article. I just want to reflect on certain parts of it with you. Because he's an Israeli author, the title of the article is "The Plague is a Formative Event. When it fades, new possibilities will emerge." And so I want to talk about those new possibilities, things that we had missed before the plague. So we're not going to call it the pandemic today. And the reason why he's calling it the plague is, first of all, he wrote this article right before Passover. And second of all, an Israeli author would use a biblical word like plague instead of pandemic, because it's part of the Hebrew Bible and therefore part of Jewish culture, and therefore in Israel, an image that is used to describe what we call coronavirus or COVID-19, he calls the plague. And what does he mean by a formative event? I think what he means by formative event is a life-shifting event. Not the kind that's sort of in pop culture, you know, like when my teenagers say, you know, Dad, you don't understand, this is going to change my life forever, kind of dramatic teenage kind of thing. But a tectonic shift, right? We're living in a historic moment, and it's very hard to know without the benefit of hindsight what to do in the historic moment. So that's our agenda for today, is to talk about what will change for us. And at the end, I do want to spend a few minutes getting just a very informal feedback from you about some high holiday decisions that are coming up quickly, and see where you guys are at. So he starts out, does someone want to read the first paragraph, and then we're going to skip down. And again, I will send this to you so you can read the whole article and make the link available. I meant to put it in the invitation, but I don't think I did. Does someone want to begin?
I can do it.
Thanks, Wendy.
And I had a question too.
Yeah.
I was just telling Ron the other day, or asking him, are those of us who are alive now during this, considering this and the political situation and global warming, are those of us who survive, are we meant to see this? Are those billions of us here, is our path in life to be here for some reason?
Let's get to that. I think that's an incredibly important question about message. What is the ultimate message of living right now?
Yeah,
it's a great, and I don't think we're going to solve it in one day, but there are some really interesting perspectives out there, especially in Jewish law and in Jewish tradition, about what to do when it's a time of seismic shift. And the message, the quick answer is, any great biblical character, all of our, what I like to call our archetypes, Abraham, Sarah, Moses, Isaiah, Miriam, Yael, all these people had trauma, some big traumatic event that then put them into what I like to call epiphany mode. And that's what got them going. And each one of them had humility during that epiphany trauma. So we'll talk about that, Wendy, but let's do a little reading first.
Okay. It's bigger than us, the plague. It's stronger than every flesh and blood enemy we've encountered, more powerful than every superhero we've conjured up in our imaginations and in the movies. Occasionally, a blood-curdling thought worms its way into the heart that perhaps this time, in a war against it, we will lose, truly lose, a worldwide defeat. Like in the days of the Spanish flu, it's a thought that immediately discarded because how could we possibly lose? After all, we are 21st century humanity. We are advanced, computerized, armed with countless weapons and means of destruction, protected with antibodies, immunized. Yet nevertheless, something about it, about this plague, that says the rules of the game this time are different from what we've become accustomed to. So much so, in fact, that it can be said that for now, there are no rules. With dread, we count hourly the sick and the dead in every corner of the world. Whereas the enemy pitted against us shows no sign of tiring or slowing down, while it harvests among us without interruption and uses our bodies to multiply.
It's a very powerful opening, and I know some of you, again, have read David Grossman before, and one of the dreams that I've always had is to do modern Israeli, contemporary Israeli authors and read some of their books. And so I told Rabbi Mason Barkin to watch out that there's going to be a men's book club at some point, and we're working on every other 6 weeks to 8 weeks of doing some switcheroonies. But I would definitely read one of David Grossman's books. What do you think? And this was written March 23rd, as I said. So here we are 5 months later. I think what's most striking about this is that this paragraph is as true today, if not more true, than it was 5 months ago, and that surprises me. Other thoughts?
I mean, I have a thought.
Lori.
My thought is that if, especially since we just read the Parsha last week, where we can choose between a curse and a blessing, that if our reality is the sum of our choices, then collectively the coronavirus is our fault. They're talking about this as the enemy, but maybe it's just our poor choices that have brought this on, that we didn't merit blessing to avoid this.
And that's somehow related to what I think, Wendy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's somewhat related to finding meaning, especially in sort of harsh reality, which is what's our role in this? And I spoke about this, I don't know, back in May, I think, or April maybe, about the idea of nature really not caring what we think. Like Grossman's talking about how advanced we are, or how technology bound, and how our technology we've relied on to solve so many problems. And just the massive amount of modernization, especially in the last decade or two. I think what's caught a lot of people off guard is that there wasn't, in our society, we're used to immediate gratification, immediate cures, and this plague didn't care if you were wealthy or poor, black or white, technology savvy or not, scientifically inclined or not. That maybe there is a message behind it that no one wants to talk about, which is our interactions daily, weekly, monthly in our lives with the environment, that maybe we do take certain things for granted. And maybe when I was talking about humility before, part of the problem has been our lack of humility. Should I say, our taking things for granted that we should have been more respectful of. I don't know. It's a good idea. Someone else?
I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. I didn't mean, did we actually do something to make this? What I meant was, on a cosmic sense, did God put us here in this situation because of some of his reasons, not because of our reasons.
Okay.
But because the path that he puts us on, because I think we all have a purpose in life, is this part of it? Are the ones of us who he wants to survive, are we going to survive for a reason?
Okay, I got you.
Rabbi?
Yes, Jeff.
I don't think God
Sam, hold on one second. I'm going to do Jeff first and then Sam.
I was saying to Janie yesterday, imagine if this had happened 10 or 15 years ago, before Zoom and YouTube and the ability to have services or communicate or to do what we're doing today. And we were even that much more isolated than we are now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Made it a whole lot tougher.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We know from one of the plagues in Eastern Europe, there was a rabbi, there's this image of teaching Torah from the balcony that many rabbis and professors of Jewish teachings have used in their titles for their lectures, which is teaching from the balcony, which harkens back to when the Friday Saturday morning Shabbat Drash was done. A rabbi would stand on a balcony if the synagogue had it outside, and during these plagues would preach from the balcony. So people could because they knew from socially distancing and wearing masks, even in the 1800s when there were plagues. So we learned that this Zoom stuff and live streaming is so helpful, but 200 years ago, rabbis were preaching during plagues in Eastern Europe, preaching from the balconies of their homes or apartments to people who would gather outside.
But people didn't live so far away from each other.
I know.
Either.
I know. They lived in the community.
They lived in the community. We're kind of spread out.
It'd be nice to go back to the shtetl because at least we could, have socially distanced nosh.
Rabbi?
Yes.
This is, after 9/11,
yeah,
you lived in New Jersey, New York, Connecticut. There were many people that didn't go in that day or went in, came home, whatever. But there were many people that stopped to reevaluate their lives and the 12 hours that they spent every day so they could work 8 and to decide whether it was still worth it. And it was
Right.
that was a big eye opener for an awful lot of people. You know,
Well,
even in my
including you
town,
guys.
which my town was not a bedroom town. We didn't have a direct route to the city.
Right.
But the towns that did, it was big, you know.
Yeah. And you were sort of living the trauma in real time because remember the smoke was still coming out of the piles for a long time.
Yep.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for Michael, they moved his office to Jersey City, and when he looked out his window, that was what it faced. It was a little bizarre. A little bizarre.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow. Okay, so let's go now to this next part down here, because I've already eaten up a lot of time talking about puffins. Does someone want to read for many? This is now about what do we do? This is going to the very first question. And Wendy, maybe this will begin to answer that question that you asked. But what does this formative event, this life-altering event mean for us when we get to the other side? Someone want to read?
I will.
Susan? Oh, who?
Elaine.
Oh, okay, Elaine, thank you.
For many, the plague might become the fateful and formative event in the continuation of their lives. When it fades away at long last and people come out of their homes following a lengthy closure, new and surprising possibilities might be articulated. Perhaps having touched the foundation of existence will foment that. Perhaps the tangibility of death and the miracle of being rescued from it will jolt and rattle women and men. Many will lose their loved ones. Many will lose their place of work, their livelihood, their dignity. But when the plague ends, there may also be those who will not wish to return to their former lives. There will be those, the ones who are able to, of course, who will leave the job that for years stifled and suppressed them. Some will decide to leave their family, to separate from their partner, to bring a child into the world, or precisely to refrain from that. There will be those who will come out of the closet, out of all manners of closets. Some will start to believe in God. There will be religious believers who will apostatize. Possibly a consciousness of life's brevity and fragility will spur men and women to seek a new order of priorities, to insist far more on distinguishing the wheat from the chaff, to understand that time, not money, is their most precious source.
So what does this trigger for anyone? Let's get some people maybe who haven't spoken yet too. Especially this idea that when the plague ends, there may also be those who wish not to return to their former lives. So when there's a tectonic shift, and I use that as the analogy because I'm from San Francisco, and I got to study in college the Loma Prieta earthquake, which I got to live through in 1989. When you have a tectonic shift, things don't go back to the same, right? They just don't. And there's an image. I always ask you a question and then I answer it, but it's been a while since I've talked. There's an image that they used when we were doing the seismic retrofitting of Beth Israel in San Francisco. And the image was that an earthquake, let's say this is your building. And seismic retrofitting, you put rebar in the walls basically, so that if the building shifts, it can kind of come back to where it was. And so what the architects engineers would teach us is, here's your earthquake, and let's say it's going out that far, the building, and then it snaps back into place. There is a point at which it won't go back into place. It won't snap back. And then really when you're out here, forget about it. You can never get the paperclip or the building to be the same again. It'll never go back, because even if you push it back, it still wants to go further than it can scientifically go back. So there's certain things like the paperclip, I get sick, we have a death in the family, it goes back at some point, but there is a point where a formative or tectonic shift causes it to be permanently different. So that's the question. What does that trigger, this idea that David Grossman's writing about here?
I think these are conscious decisions that we make for when this is over, that we can make changes in our life that we want to make, that maybe we would have wanted to make before but didn't have the strength to do it, because now everything you look at in a different way. You know, for example, a lot of people may not want to go back to their jobs in a physical building full time. They may just want to work a lot from home. I mean, there will be absolute conscious decisions to change your life. Conscious decisions about family members you don't want to see anymore or do want to see more. Just a lot of your own personal. I think what I thought were major problems and issues will not be when this is over. I mean, we have type 1, you know, I don't know, problems that were important to me are not important anymore. Everything is different.
Right. And going back to what Elaine was talking about with 9/11, I think that was, especially for New Yorkers, one of the most fundamental changes, which was just feeling safe, you know. And then when they instituted, remember they instituted the orange and the red and the whatever. And Elaine, I know you can speak a lot more to this too. It sort of added to the anxiety of, should I even go on the subway today? Should I go into X, Y, or Z neighborhood? Or should I take the tunnel anymore? You know, to get—
You should try driving the George Washington Bridge and only having dump trucks on it.
Right.
A couple of cars, but everything else was the dump trucks.
Right, right. And then over time, but Carol's making, but that's the metaphor, right? Is did it change forever? Or did things go back to normal? You know, I don't know. But I do know that after an earthquake, after a plague, there was no, the 10 plagues didn't include earthquake, but you know, it could have been in there. Anyone else? Yeah, Jeff, and then Vicky.
You use the term tectonic shift.
Yeah.
I heard that term used 3 or 4 times recently about Israel's relations with the UAE and the normalization of relationships between the two countries, that is, many people consider a tectonic shift in the world.
Mm-hmm. The only difference being that Israel has had similar relationships, you know, starting with Egypt and then Jordan. So the hope is that, you know, based on experience, they will have learned, you know, how to take advantage of the opportunity in the best way. And for those paying attention, you know, the UAE, I mean, Etihad started flying planes into Israel a few months ago because they were picking up, I think they were picking up ventilators and then they have these business scientific agreements. So it was all leading up to this big moment. So what is a tectonic shift? It means things don't go back to the way they were before, especially in nature. I know someone was raising their hand patiently.
Steve.
Yeah, Steve Goldson. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped over Vicky. Vicky, you're next. Sorry. But Steve, go ahead.
You know, human beings kind of revert back.
I can't hear you so well.
Human beings kind of revert back to the norm. And I think in 2 or 3 years, we'll be 90% of where we were before this started. The real change will not be, the real change will be the technology change. I think we'll forget about the pandemic itself. It'll be just like the 9/11. It'll be in the back of our minds, but it's not going to affect how our daily life, but the technology change will. We've accelerated by years the change in communication, and we've advanced much further than we would have without the pandemic. And that's where the change, which we would have got to along the way, has been accelerated hugely.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, one of the things about the tectonic shifts is, or as he calls it, a formative event, is it's a trigger, right? So the aftermath We don't know yet. It's being written. But one of the things I think that Steve's pointing to, and it's in the title of the article, is this idea of these new possibilities that are going to emerge. And we don't know exactly, and Steve, you're right. I mean, you've named a couple. We don't know exactly what those new possibilities are because we're just at the very, very, very beginning. But I hope that one of the new possibilities from this will be a new way of doing science and cooperating. Many of us, I didn't live through, for example, smallpox vaccines and vaccines to the mumps and the measles. I got the shot when I was a baby, but a lot of those were developed by multinational cohorts, right? You had different scientists, and this is before the internet, different scientists from different parts of the world who were able to develop these treatments by putting their heads together. So I hope one of the things also, the possibility is that people will continue to strive to work together in an understanding that that's the best way to get things done. Vicki.
I'm reading a sense of grief in this paragraph. There's been the use of this word loss at least 2 times, or implied
and loss, yeah.
in so many other sentences. And I think even if we haven't lost our lives, or thank God, you know, our families are well, we've lost a sense of our own personal autonomy, controllability, illusion of controllability. We've been knocked off the pedestal of invincibility. We have to really think about this moment as David Kessler, who took Kubler-Ross's 5 steps and then added the stage of meaning making. This is a moment of meaning making for all of us as we reemerge. What, you know, what does he talk? The possibility of consciousness of life's brevity and frailty will spur men and women to say, I mean, this is, it's an existential moment for all of us. There's a groundlessness beneath us. You know, where do we stand? How do we live our lives? What will life be like beyond this? It is an opportunity. I like the word possibility in this context.
Me too. And that's, again, one of the outcomes of a formative event, is that you have opportunities to, once you can shut the noise out, especially also, which is why I had to sort of force myself to stop watching the news and looking on the internet too much. One of my favorite things, and I'm not just saying this because Dory's here, has been the conversations I've had with Rebecca Sonnenschein, who, as you know, is not only a member, but is the director of Maricopa County Health. But we've been having some really cool spiritual conversations, because she'll say something and then it'll trigger me to say, well, you know, that's funny, because in Judaism, you know, Judaism has had this sort of love affair with medicine, not just because of Maimonides, because he was a doctor, but forever, this sort of mind, body, spirit, and your body is on loan from God and you have to protect it. But I like what you said about the existential piece of it. We're having conversations that typically we would have just shared with ourselves and maybe a few other people, but not like this. I mean, I've seen people become incredibly vulnerable in the most beautiful ways.
Yes.
And look, I'm not the guy who would have taken the pictures of the puffins before. And I think that's something I think now is different, is not to take that stuff for granted and really be in the moment, you know? Anyway, let's go down here. So I like that you pointed out loss, leaving, but also this idea of possibly a consciousness of life's brevity that you were pointing out, Vicki, especially for those of us who I'm going to be 52, but I haven't hit that point yet where I've started thinking about that. I think about there's a lot of life to live, and I think sometimes in that existential realm about Carol was alluding to this before, what am I wasting time on? I don't want to waste too much time on stuff, especially worrying about certain things. But anyway, let's keep going here. Because I want to be respectful of time also. So I'm going to skip this because this is somewhat the same. And he does talk about maybe we'll have peace. You know, maybe people will look at the Palestinian-Israeli within Israel, will look at it differently. And My belief about that, he sort of alludes to it also, is people will get exhausted with the status quo with regard to the Israeli-Palestinian situation. And I think at some point, everyone's going to get exhausted with it, and then they're going to just sort of force themselves to sit down and figure it out. But let's go here. As such, someone want to read?
I'll read.
I'll read.
Whoever wants to start.
Okay. As such, it is possible to hope that perhaps when the plague ends and the air will be filled with feelings of healing and recuperation and health, a different spirit will pervade humanity, a spirit of easefulness and of a new freshness. Perhaps people will begin to reveal, for example, engaging signs of innocence, unspoiled by even an iota of cynicism. Perhaps softness will suddenly become, for a certain time, legal tender. Maybe we will understand that the murderous plague has given us an opportunity to slice from ourselves layers of fat, of swinish greed, of thick and undiscriminating thought, of abundance that became excess and has already begun to suffocate us. And why in the world did we collect so many objects? Why did we heap our lives until life itself was buried beneath mountains of objects that we have no object?
That have no object.
That have no object.
Right. Tchotchkes. Is that possible?
Yes.
Or is it David Grossman living in La La Land?
Rabbi, we have a saying in our family.
Yeah.
Only important things are not things.
Right. They're people.
I have a good one from Isaiah if you want to hear it.
Oh, yeah. You know what? We always depend on you to bring a little Torah into this.
So, for as the earth brings forth her growth, and a garden makes the seed shoot up, so the Lord God will make victory and renown shoot up in the presence of all the nations.
What does that mean to you? You're on mute. That's okay.
To me, it means as the earth grows and brings forth this growth, just like a garden with a seed, it grows and it blooms. That's kind of victorious because you plant the seed and it comes to be something.
Yeah.
So as the earth grows and it becomes something else, that God will make victory and renown shoot up. So I don't know. I think it's a nice, happy thought. It's from one of the Haftorahs of consolation. So
yeah. Which is we're in the cycle of the Haftorahs of consolation now before the holy days, and so there's some consoling thoughts in here that Grossman is talking about, and I like it how he calls it a murderous plague, but then says it gives us this opportunity to slice from ourselves, and this is very Isaiah-like, Jeremiah-like, layers of fat, of swinish greed. Amos, remember, speaks to the kingdom of the north, and he talks about all the fat kings and queens who are sitting there, you know, while they're stomping on the heads of the poor, and they're just sitting in their chairs and on their sofas eating. But I don't think, you know, obviously he means it physical, the physical fat. He's talking about the stuff that we can definitely, I feel like there's a lot of purging. So when I say, what do we miss and what do we miss? The question is also, and open for answers here, what won't we miss?
Rabbi?
Anymore. Yes, Sharon.
I have become acutely aware of there's so many people out there that have had physical losses in their families.
Yeah.
I actually made a list of the people that have died since March.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe how many there are. Not all COVID related, but a lot of them are. And I can only imagine my neighbor's 83-year-old healthy retired father came down with COVID, made some progress. They were going to send him home from the hospital. And then 2 days later, he took a dive for the worse. His wife would not leave his side. The kids had to gather PPE, so she stayed in the hospital with him against their wishes, and he died. And then she came home and had to quarantine and got the virus herself. And she's okay. But the fact that so many people have lost loved ones and have not been able to mourn with their family, and these people were not Jewish, and so they don't have a shiva like we're used to, which obviously has reason to help people get through that first week.
Yeah.
And I just think with Yizkor coming, there's going to be an awful lot of people out there that have been touched by this in one way or another, losses, physical losses that have not been addressed. And they haven't had people to hug them and be with them. And I think there's going to need to be a lot of healing that goes happening this year once we get through the worst of it. And we don't even know if we're through the worst of it. So
right.
So
if you don't mind, you all know Rabbi Dr. David Ellenson, who comes once a year and is our scholar in residence, and who is a mentor and a friend, and just, I think, one of the smartest people alive. So I had written him back in May, and so I just actually put your comments made me think of this. So I said to him in this email, we were talking about this article that Laszlo and I are working on regarding end-of-life decision-making. And Laszlo Vassar, for those of you who don't know, is an ICU hospitalist and regular Torah study. And so we're gonna co-author an article and that I was working on during sabbatical about end-of-life decision-making from a medical perspective and a Jewish perspective. So Dr. Ellenson put me in touch with some articles, and he's going to sort of edit it for us. So I said in my email to him in May, my father also died on March 8th, so I haven't come up for air. It was right before the outbreak got crazy, but nonetheless, it was ultimately a relief as his condition had deteriorated so significantly, as I shared with you when you were here. The hardest part, and this goes right to what you were saying, Sharon, the hardest part has been not being able to say Kaddish in person for him. While we have led multiple virtual services, it just doesn't work for me personally. His response, which was beautiful, and I'm going to talk about this during Yizkor probably, don't commit me to it yet. He said, so sorry to hear about your dad. I know how difficult it is to lose a parent, only hope that all these nice things. He said, Kaddish is meant to be said in community where you can be embraced. Zoom minyanim cannot compensate. So what he's saying is exactly what you're saying. Is Kaddish is meant to be said so that the mourner can say it, whether it's Shiva or Shloshim or Yartzeit, and get a hug from someone after. That's what's meant to be. And that's what Shiva is all about, right? Well, the food is what Shiva is all about, but it's really about being able to give the mourner a hug, and for the mourner, and Janie was talking about this before, getting the hug. It needs to be done in person. So I'm thinking about what to do for Yizkor so that there can be an in-person component to it. And I'll share that in a second. Any other ideas about this? Because we're running out of time, and I do want to be respectful of time, but I'm happy to go over. For those of you who want to leave, you're welcome to, but maybe we'll go over just an extra 10 minutes.
There was a part that I wanted to share.
Please.
I like the part where it says, perhaps softness will become legal tender.
Right. And that song that I shared on the YouTube thing last week is called Legal Tender, but please continue. What does that make you think about?
I think what's become most valuable to me and my family during this time has been those who have provided a soft place to land on their shoulder without judgment and just understanding and compassion. And it has been worth so much because there has been so little. And that little bit that's come our way has helped us to get through the difficult challenges that we're going through. And we've had to make the most difficult choice in our life And that softness is really important to us. And so I've tried to provide softness when other people needed it, if they wanted it, without telling them what to do or where to go. And my husband always says that I have the softest place to land for my children. I have one right here.
I can see.
And that's really important, especially if we don't have anything else to offer. If we can offer just that soft place to land, that soft ear, and to cry with somebody, that tenderness, to laugh with somebody, to cry with somebody, and to be there with somebody in their time of change. And there's been a lot of loss with death, but in our family, it's not so much death, but it's very significant losses that are coming. So
yeah,
we've been really appreciative of the soft places that people have provided.
Right. So you've got this bigger transformative moment or tectonic shift, and then within that, each of us has our own transformative moments and transitions. And sometimes within that, there are even more. And especially when it involves our kids or our parents and those who are closest to us, it can feel not just overwhelming, but the contrast feels like there's a lot of anger out there in the world right now. And for a lot of people, anger and fear are inseparably linked in most areas of their lives, but now it's sort of become magnified. And if you can pay the softness forward and the tenderness forward, I mean, just think about the possibilities of what the world will feel like when that happens. And I'm going to go back again to something that Vicki had pointed out, which is the idea of adding meaning into the process. Meaning for ourselves, enabling others to have meaning, and you need tenderness for that. You need softness for that. And that's not just pie in the sky. That's human nature, is when someone feels heard, when someone feels accepted, when someone feels a sense of relief around someone because they've allowed them to feel that tenderness, it can really change that person's life. And I don't mean that understated. You know, I wrote my thesis on Cain and Abel, and I said one of the reasons why Cain killed Abel was simply because he felt so rejected. You know, where Abel was accepted and Cain was rejected, the rejection turned into rage, and the rage turned into murder. So these are big concepts. So I'm glad that you've been able to receive that softness and tenderness.
Yeah. Right.
And that's, again, when I go to the poem down here, and please, again, anyone can email me and I will send this exact sheet to you. This has a hyperlink on it so you can actually listen to her sing the song about legal tenderness.
Rabbi?
I just want, yes, please.
Not to get morbid, but most of us who are involved in this are at an age where things start to go wrong physically. And we've experienced that. And I know in the case of Janie and myself, there are 4 or 5 different events or visits that we had planned that we've had to postpone because of this. And I'm concerned that the longer this goes, the chance of us being able to reschedule and replan these events diminishes. And there may be things which we consider important in our life with other people that will not ever happen in our lives.
Yeah.
I think that one of the things that could keep us going is the Gam Zeh Ya'avur, this too shall pass.
this isn't the first plague we've had or the first flu we had in 2009. There was a swine flu, killed 200,000 people. Between 2009 and 2010, AIDS killed 32 million people. So what we have to keep in the back of our minds is this too shall pass. Maybe not go back to the normal that we know of normal, but this will pass. You know what? It's the only hope we have.
Right.
Yeah, and you know, if I may just, I'm one thing I don't have to worry about is I'm not in denial about the problems this is creating. But you know, we got to remember the two spies who said, "There's good stuff ahead, and we can get it."
Mm-hmm.
So when the time comes, let's pull that out again.
There's milk and honey on the other side, right?
That's what I'm hoping. Got to believe it. We choose.
Well, and that's why I think David Grossman, again, going back to the title, talks about new possibilities.
Yeah.
I just want to just really quickly read this last paragraph, because this goes to the more cynical part, which is, well, things will just go back to normal and everyone will start to do their thing. And will anything of what has been described here come to pass? Who knows? And even if it does come to pass, I fear that it will fade away quickly and things will go back to what they were before we were plagued, before the flood. And earlier in the article, he uses some of the text from the Bible, from Noah and the flood. What we will undergo until then is very difficult to guess. And I think that that's really hard for us, is balancing all the ambiguity. But we will do well to go on asking the questions as a type of medicine until a vaccine is found for the plague. And so I really love how David Grossman ends it with this idea that the antidote, if you will, in the meantime, in the midst of the unknown, is to go on asking questions. What are we missing? What do we miss? What will we make sure not to miss in the future? That the medicine and the vaccines can be, and again, it's one of the reasons why I've missed you so much and missed the congregation, even though it was only 2.5 months, is because these interactions, even though they can't ever replace being in person, because I like hugging too, and seeing people physically. But I also want people to, I would love for people to be less scared and to have more perspective, but everybody experiences their lives differently. Someone had mentioned about post-traumatic stress before. And, you know, one of the things that we learned from Torah is that, again, our archetypes, Abraham, Isaiah, Moses, have some sort of Isaac. I have a whole class that I've done multiple times on the PTSD that Isaac experienced after the Akedah, after the binding. But they move on, and they get to the other side, but they never, as Jews, we know this message, but they never forget the trauma. And so we have to be very careful, as you guys were just saying, about what happens when these feelings, when we get to the other side of it, get re-triggered, and how compassionate we are with each other. I love the comments about, you know, that Sharon made about Yisker this year. I will tell you, and I've said this to a number of people, for those of us who lost loved ones and weren't able to have Shiva and Shloshim, and, you know, I bought new tefillin, for God's sake, to say Kaddish for my dad. And then Avos Torah closed. We got ripped off our mourning, you know, and I hope it doesn't come across as narcissistic, but we kind of got ripped off. And I'm working really hard with my colleagues to figure out how, and this is, I want to not spend more than 5 minutes, so if people can just give quick responses. I want to figure out how we can safely have some semblance of public worship for High Holy Days this year. I want to figure out how we can safely have Shabbat services. Again, even though I think it would need to be limited, and I think we would do 8 feet of distancing, and of course, everyone would wear masks. Andrew Goldschmidt, many of you know Andrew Goldschmidt. If you don't, he's he works for American Airlines. He's a mechanic. So he flies into Los Angeles, which is a hub for American, I think, for 2 or 3 days a week. to fix planes, he built for us these fiberglass protectors around the bimas, the pulpits. So what do you think? What do you think if we had, here's my fear. Let me put out my fear first, is that if we say we're going to have some public services for high holy days, but we're going to be very strict in limiting it. So either through raffle or pre-registration or both, giving people the opportunity to pray in public, but not interact, meaning you would arrive, have your temperature taken. There'd be very limited seating. And again, everything is going to be online. We're upgrading all of the video stuff so that we can do more close-ups and fade-ins and fade-outs. But what would it feel like to have the chapel and the sanctuary open with incredibly limited, very strictly enforced distancing with masks? Again, I know not everyone would want to participate in this, but a lot of congregations are moving in that direction. We're in the single digits, so the science is, and I'll be following up with Rebecca Sonnenschein in the next week or two, but the numbers are heading in the right direction. I know a lot of you shouldn't come. I think if you're over 65 or you have any of the comorbidities, as they're called, you shouldn't. It's interesting from the survey, a lot of people who are over, not just 65, but over 75 really want to come.
I would love to, but I'd be afraid to.
Yeah. So even if you don't want to, you're going to have everything online and it will be upgraded. It'll even be better. But I'm wondering what do you think of that?
I think it's wonderful for the younger people that want to come, and some of them are already out working. They have to be out, and it's not a problem. I think the temperature taking is a moot point because you could still have it and your temperature is fine. And I don't think that's even important. The ones who want to come should come.
Yeah. Again, it would be incredibly limited. I don't even know. I have to go. I've done the measurements in the sanctuary, so I know it would be every other row, and we'd have spaces for 2 or 3, if there's a family, let's say 4 people, that they could sit, and individuals 1 and 2. I already have that figured out. My guess is that we would max out at about 150 between the sanctuary and the chapel. And we can do it, I feel we can do it safely, and I feel like because the numbers, one of the things that I'm learning is that, it's about that 2-week average of positive tests, or tests that come back positive, which was 23% in July, right as we were thinking about opening up for Shabbat again, is now down into the single digits, 8, 6, 7, 8%. So that seems to be doing well. And I know people feel strongly in one way or the other. I guess my biggest concern is, people who are in the demographic of 65 plus who want to come. I feel that Jewish law very clearly states that every person gets to decide for themselves what they want to do, right? You can't kick someone out. If they're coming in and they're healthy and otherwise feeling good, Jewish law is pretty clear that even though we believe in this idea of pikuach hanefesh, which is a whole other conversation, the importance of health and life and all that stuff. Anyone else have an idea? Yes.
I'm thinking of a photograph I just saw of several streets in Israel where men were actually out praying on the street, going into parks or open lots and spacing themselves out. It may not work here because of our environmental factors, but I thought it was a very resourceful.
Especially with the rabbi who needs air conditioning at 70.
But those Israeli men in their suits and hats.
I know. How do they do that with the fur hat?
Israel, it's not war. It's not cool in Israel.
No, it isn't.
So I don't know. That was just inspiring to see their resourcefulness at this time, because they pray several times a day. So yeah, it was beautiful.
I'd like to piggyback on her idea, Rabbi. At the beginning of coronavirus, I would get together with other moms who were stuck at home with babies, and we would go to a park, maybe 5 of us. We'd spread out and find a really shady spot in a park. So is there a way to maybe get together in some smaller groups where we're able to spread out, maybe an early morning or late evening?
Yeah.
Have our own little service so that people who want to see somebody can, and maybe we have some guidance from the rabbi on how to pray together.
Yeah.
In a small
Well, that's
group?
one of the things I was thinking about if we didn't do public services, and this goes back to the point that Sharon made. For those who lost a loved one, like me, in the last year, to do an alternative Yizkor. So we would do the regular one at the regular time online and live stream it. This is if we didn't do public services. But maybe after Kol Nidre services, have an alternative one out in the courtyard where only people who have lost someone in the last year, again, because I feel like, I don't speak for everyone, but I feel like for me, it would be nice to be with other people, that we could do a version of a Yizkor service late at night. So it would be after Kol Nidre services, or maybe early in the morning on Yom Kippur Day. So people could have that sense of being in close proximity, not, socially distanced, but in physical space out in the courtyard outside with mass on. But could have the opportunity to pray Yizkor with other mourners who have lost someone in the last year. It was just an idea that I thought. Good thing about sabbatical is you get to think crazy things up. So that could be another option. Yeah.
Rabbi, our synagogue in D.C., Addis Israel, which is the oldest conservative in D.C.
Right.
Sharon got an email from them. She's still on their newsletter that they're going to do a Rosh Hashanah service out on their parking lot. Now, how they're going to do that, I don't know, because parking around that area in D.C. is horrible.
Right.
But let's say they have 40, 50 people out on their parking lot.
Right.
That was an interesting way. I think it was going to
So
be.
what you can do, and this is probably what they're doing, Joe, is you can, you buy airtime on an AM station.
Right.
And so people turn into that station so you don't have to worry about sound system stuff. And so you can be in your car with the air conditioning on theoretically. It's like going to a drive-in movie. And some places have looked into that and it's been successful, where you can have at least people are in their cars, but at least you can have some semblance of a communal gathering.
Well, they didn't say that you would be in your cars, so I don't know whether they just have you standing out there or chairs set up in the parking lot. But it's going to be interesting what they do.
It's yeah. Sherry, you had something? Your mute is on.
Due to health reasons, but I'd love to come, but I just, due to health reasons, it's just not feasible.
Yeah.
So.
Right.
No, and I don't think anyone.
I don't think, but I would love to, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sam Baker, you had something you wanted to say.
You're on mute, Sam.
Sam, you're on mute.
Sam, unmute, lower left.
He's trying.
Lower left.
Oh, I think I can do it.
Now, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm concerned that the desire to have services in person may prompt somebody who shouldn't be there to come. And the illness of one person isn't worth the price for the services. This, for all of us who are on the screen, this is a wonderful way to contact you. We all have a part of you, and what there are 20 some odd of us here, we couldn't have that much part of you if we were in person.
No, it's been wonderful to use the technology this way. Yeah. And I share that concern. I do.
Can I also say it's not, I agree with Sam 100%, but it's not just ourselves thinking about, it's those in our own family bubble, that if something happens to us while we're out enjoying a wonderful service, of which I've never missed my whole life, I have to think about my children, my grandchildren, the people in my life that I have to stay safe for.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. One of the things that we preschool started yesterday. So our enrollment for this year was about the ones that were registered before coronavirus, because we open registration for August in January every year, February. So we had about 144 tushies enrolled, and I think we had a little bit over 90 end up showing up. And, you know, we've been really, you know, I was so upset when the news covered that situation with the camp in Georgia, because there were lots of camps in the US that had very successful experiences because they had, look, let's be honest, summer camps that are $12,000 a summer in Maine tend to be filled with families who can afford things like private testing. And there were a lot of these camps were spending money investing on the testing and had no COVID all summer long. Many camps who had planned, you know, our reason for closing Camp Stein was simply because Yavapai County had no support system built in for the camps. In other words, Yavapai County had about 3 months to figure out testing for the 50 or so camps that are up there. And we felt like it would have been crazy for us. We would have had to have hired very expensive staff and testing and test kits and so on and so forth. But there were many camps that were successful. And I think that, you know, if we could do it successfully and be safe to the maximum, that we should try, but, you know, with some guidance. But I agree with you. One of the things our preschool families, again, 2/3 have shown up, is the one thing that we've been really emphasizing with them is, you know, your little ones are going to come home and you need to not go out and do stuff. We want them, they're in cohorts, every class of 10 kids. We want that group of 10 to stay safe and for their teachers to stay safe. And we'll see how it goes, but so far so good. The summer went great. If there was an issue or someone in the class had a relative who came down with coronavirus, then we canceled that class for a certain period of time until they could, you know, the problem with little kids is they're asymptomatics. If they have it at all, there are no symptoms for a lot of them. So our goal is to provide as much as possible that can be healthy, but ultimately, as a rabbi, my feeling is that the authority for what an individual does is up to that individual. And that's based on, you know, Jewish tradition and my own belief too. I've heard many people who are in their 80s say, it's my life and I'm going to do what I want to do. And these are my choices. And I think, you know, I can respect that. I may not agree with it, but I can respect it. Because I do think that every individual has autonomy. But on the other hand, it's so uncertain. And so I think if anyone feels remotely uncertain or scared, they shouldn't do it. They shouldn't go to the grocery store and they shouldn't be in public.
Still, Rabbi, I think it's important not to lose sight of the support that people in the first year of grief need at this time.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do that safely, but there's got to be a creative, even if you create Zoom pods or partners where you pair people up that have grieved and at different parts. I mean, there are ways to work with this because it is a palpable need, not only in this community, but everywhere.
And it's interesting too, because like Ellenson said in my conversation with him is, so for me, now forget about my being a rabbi, I'm just Joe Schmo Jew. For me, I can't say Kaddish, I can, but I don't find any meaning in saying Kaddish in a Zoom service or a virtual service. When I'm leading services on Friday night here, I know you're all there, and because I know you so well and you know me so well, that's fine. That feels like I'm saying Kaddish with my community. So I am thinking a lot about Yizkor, not only for Yom Kippur, but for Sukkot as well, which is only a few days after, of how to, in a virtual sense, provide that. Or, like I said, maybe after Kol Nidre services are done, we have a half an hour to sit outside when it's not going to be a gazillion degrees, and it's a little bit later this year too, and invite people who have, lost someone in the last year, or maybe expanded a little bit beyond that in a way that's safe and outdoors. And, you know, if you're outside wearing a mask, there's no 100% guarantee, but I think that may give people a little bit more confidence too. But I agree with you, Vicki. We have to think about it. And it's interesting, you know, thank God, Rabbi Mason Barkin and Cantor have all of their parents. So I tend to have that conversation with people who have lost a parent because it's a different, you know, it's a different mindset.
It is. It is.
And losing the second parent felt different, you know. Yeah, like Wendy, please.
I was going to say you feel like an orphan because when my dad dies, I mean, I was in my 60s and I said, "Oh my God, I'm an orphan." Other than what you were talking about, Yisker, I want to put a little different spin on this because it's because of we have a medical situation. So for many years, it's been Ron and my tradition to most of the time, the Erev part of the holiday, we spend watching and worshiping with Central Synagogue in New York.
Right.
And then we come during the day, and then on Yom Kippur, we'll come back, and then I'll turn Central on in the afternoon and shut it off at 3 o'clock. And then we'll head back down. So we've done this for a number of years. And while we prefer to be there in person, the richness that we glean from it is just about the same. Now, admittedly, you know, it's different because there's a whole bunch of people there and we're used to doing this. I mean, one thing they do is they have their own prayer book. So they upload their prayer books ahead of time so you can print it out.
Right.
But, you know, speaking as somebody who's worshiped like this for years, it really is okay because I can't remember. I mean, they were on before you were on. You know,
no, they were pioneers in this whole space. Yeah.
And so it's been many, many years. But it's still that rich feeling. We still get dressed up. We still, you know, we have the laptop on the table with the tablecloth. And
you shouldn't wear your pajamas to Kol Nidre.
No, you know, no. But, you know, that's another way of looking at it. I don't know. And I understand you're an extrovert and, you know, you want all this, but I think you also have to go back and you kind of have to say, for me, what you'd say to your child if your child were doing something risky. At the end of the day, should the worst happen, can you say it was worth it? And theoretically, if people get sick and some get very sick, can you still say that, yeah, it was worth having a service in person?
Right. No, I hear you. I hear you.
Rabbi, the other thing.
We're going to wrap up after this comment, but go ahead.
The other thing is the prayer book, because I was thinking about that. But especially the book that we use for the high holidays, there's so many fabulous things in there, readings that we don't get to do in services.
Oh, that's what you're supposed to do during the sermon.
Oh, no, I thought you were supposed to sleep during the sermon.
Yeah, or do the extra reading.
So, you know, it would be kind of cool to have that book and at your leisure over that week, be able to do all that. I mean, like I'm using on Friday nights, the book that you do for the adult bat mitzvah. So whenever they read and a page on the left, I don't have that because that's where we made our notes.
Right.
You
so
know,
the book, the CCAR did make the Machzor available. And I'm encouraging people to either download it. You can also buy it. I mean, it's $30-something. You can buy the electronic version also. But the one that they put, the flip book, like for Friday nights, they made available as well. So we can use. We're going to be using that.
Rabbi,
and if we do public worship, we're gonna have packets if we do it. But I'm going to encourage people to bring in their phones or their laptops, or not their laptops, their iPads or whatever, and have it pre-downloaded because obviously we're not going to be passing books.
You could rotate the books. I mean, you'll have so few people, you could actually rotate your books.
We could do that and spray them down in between as well. Yeah.
Like, could I check out a book? I mean, I'm a member. I mean, if I wanted to come to synagogue and borrow a couple, because I would prefer to use the book than my iPad on the high holidays. Would that be?
You mean not to use the iPad and actually have the physical book?
Yes. Could I check one out?
Yeah. Look, I'm glad there's only 18 people here. I mean, I wouldn't want 300, 400, 500 people showing up to do that. But Laura, you can.
Thank you.
the 18 people here who showed up today. If you need a book, let me know and we'll figure it out. But I don't want to put the staff in the position of having to pass out 18,000 books. All right, my friends, so great seeing you.
Thank you, Rabbi. Welcome back.
This was like the best first thing to do back, and I'll see you on Friday night.
Thank you.
Lots of love to all of you.
And back to you too.
Thank you. I'll see you soon, guys.
Okay. Bye.
Hello.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Bye-bye.